It was a new beginning, a chance to build a better future. After the war, I wasn't sure we could learn to trust. Some wanted revenge, but we kept Negan alive. Somehow he escaped. We lost friends we loved. My true love. But even now, 6 years later, his hopes for the future live on. Our splintered communities must now reunite to face a brutal enemy who walk with the dead. Keep them together and whisper.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Indie Radio presents Talking About Walkers, the Walking Dead podcast, the show that breaks down all new episodes of your favorite zombie TV show, right here on IndieRadio.org. And now, here are the hosts of the podcast, Kinte, Jen, and Olaf. Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Talking About Walkers, the Walking Dead podcast. This is episode 108. I am here to talk about the newest episode of The Walking Dead. Now, some of you guys are wondering, how are we talking about this episode, being that it doesn't come out until Sunday? Well,
special.
Yes, we're very special. If you have Amazon, if you have AMC, you were treated to getting the episode early. It came out today. So if you have not seen episode 9, Adaptation of The Walking Dead, this will be heavy spoilers. So we're going to be talking about the episode that comes out officially on Sunday. We're going to be talking about it tonight. So I'll reiterate that again. So let me introduce my co-host. I'm gonna start off with the one and only Olaf. How you doing, Olaf?
Oh man, it's just another great day in the great state of Indiana. It was actually almost 55 degrees or 50 or 60 degrees today instead of 0. So been a fun day, I tell you. The last week's been really fun. It goes from 60 to 0.
Oh Jesus! Well, it's been raining here, and we in LA, when it starts raining, it gets crazy for us. So, believe it or not, I know you guys are like, woo.
But we got rain too, so it was sprinkling a little bit today and a little bit yesterday. So it goes from snow to rain to snow again to rain again to sleet. Yeah, like wow.
Bipolar.
Yes.
What's up, Dre? I see Dre in the chat room. I want to say what's up to him. But I'm glad that you're here, Olaf. Also joining us is Jen. Now, it never snows.
It never snows in Hawaii, but we've had over a week of non-stop rain. A week. Like, we're all ready to build an ark. No lie. Also, it's been cold here too. I mean, I've seen people with, their flip-flop slippers and socks. So it's cold in Hawaii when people are breaking out the socks.
Did it get down to like 70 or something like that, or?
Dude, up here it got down to 60 at night. It was 54. We were huddling together, ready to throw some furniture on the fire. It was cold. I know, I'm spoiled. I get it.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Jen, as well. And last but definitely not least, it's the one and only Tori Rush. How you doing, Tori? We can't see your eyes. We only see the bottom of your. There you go. Yeah, the bottom of your face.
Really?
How you doing? Weird. Yeah.
I see the side of your face. Like, that's it. You're not
really
either. Yeah.
Oh, that's strange.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm. So, how are you doing? It's been a minute since you've been on the show. What you been up to?
I know. I've been, doing life. That's pretty much the gist of it. But I'm back, and I'm happy to be back. The weather here has been bipolar as well.
I'm really excited about this season. I'm not as excited as I had been, though. I'm going to be honest. Like, I'm not as excited as I had been. But this was a good episode.
It is. It'll be something good to talk about. So I'm happy about that because you know how I get when it comes to when the episodes are not so good. So, but I'm glad that you were here, and you also have a new show that's starting up too. Tell us about it.
Yay! It's called The Infectious Geek, and it's going to be on right after this one. And tonight we're going to be talking about serial killers. So yay! It's about all things geeky. My show is. So
I told you not to be talking about me.
Hey Olaf, you want to be on it tonight because I know you like to talk about serial killers.
It's like, well, when you are one, it's easy to talk about it. You know all all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's like it's been a minute or two since I've been on that one because we used to do that. So
yes, so you should. It'd be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, so let's get into the episode. The episode is episode 9, the mid-season premiere. And once again, if you haven't seen it yet, you can see it on Amazon. Amazon. Why I keep saying Amazon? AMC.com. If you are a subscriber, you can see the episode now. So, but if you haven't seen it, I'm letting you know we're gonna spoil the hell out of it. So spoilers. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
The name of the episode is called Adaptation, and it's episode 9 of this season. And a lot of stuff is going on in this episode. And one thing I like about it, it starts off right where episode 8 ended. By the way that intro, and I played the intro. I mean, I normally like to do it, but the way the intro started, I thought they were going to do another time jump, but I was glad that they didn't, and they picked up pretty much where the episode 8 ended. And we got to see the aftermath of, I hate saying it, sounds so blasphemous, the aftermath of Jesus's death. And all the events that happened after that. And plus we also saw a lot with I was about to say the governor. I am so off today. Negan.
Negan.
Yeah. The governor. I still got the governor on my mind. Okay, so let's do this.
Me too. He was kind of cute.
He was cute. He was cute.
Let's start off. Let's start off with Negan, and then let's circle back to the Whisperers and Jesus's death, and all of that stuff. Okay.
Okay.
Let's start about Negan. So Negan is let out of prison. It's unclear how that actually happened, and so he's happy, of course, and he runs into little Judith, and I thought that scene was very, very cool. The back and forth between the two, and we'll start off with you, Jen. What did you think about that scene?
Well, first of all, I really have. I love that actress. She is so amazing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of presence that this kid definitely brings to it, and it's funny because you can't help but compare like her and Carl as who's who. And there's something special about the presence that she's got, which is kind of cool. But okay, let's go back to what that scene kind of looked like. So I have this feeling that the relationship that the two of them have is something maybe a little bit more than what we're led to sort of believe. Like, I don't know what happened during the downtime other than just sort of what we've seen in terms of, obviously she's been talking to him and stuff. But it's funny how she is able to put aside things that the adults cannot put aside. She can see things that the adults can't seem to see. It was almost as if she knew he'd be back. It was weird. That whole exchange felt very surreal, like almost out of a dream. It was just something very, very interesting. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it other than to say between him going to her room, taking the compass, and then trying to climb up the wall and realizing that Judith was there, the conversation that the two of them had in that short exchange felt like, I don't know, some kind of like confirmation that even she knew that there was nothing out there. Okay, go ahead. Look, I've been out there. There's nothing there. Like, does that make sense? It just,
yeah.
There was something so important about that exchange, not because she let him go, but almost because she understood this. Okay, if you want to go out there and experience what's out there, okay, I know what's out there. And it was like such a real moment. I don't know. I loved it. It was such a great way to start that piece off.
Well, and as he said in there, he's like, you know me better than anybody else does. And he said, you know me better than anybody else. And she was kind of like you say, he was like, I could blow you off the wall right now, but yeah, go ahead. I understand for 6 years you've been sitting in, like you said, she kind of, for a little kid, she's like, yeah, you've been trapped in a little box for 6 years and nothing's changed for you. So yeah, go, just like knock yourself out. You'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
So she already, like you said, it seemed like she already knew that, okay, you're going to come back because there's nothing out there.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about it?
Go ahead, Tori.
I was just going to say, like, Judith is wise beyond her years. Like, it's like she's a 30-year-old woman in a 6-year-old's body. Like, her insight on things is very mature, and I really appreciate that in the whole episode.
Yeah. Now you are a resident gun expert, Olaf. I didn't think that was quite the gun you would probably want to give what is she, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, something like that?
Yeah, it's like she actually did fire it at one time during the show, and I figured that Python would just knock her over because that's a 357 mag or 357 Python. That's got a pretty good little kick to it, but depending on some of the guns and probably with the Python, it's got it's a powerful gun, but it also has some suppression and things that make it kick less. So yeah, it's a big power gun for a little girl, but yeah, she seems to be able to handle it all right.
Yeah, I mean, I give her credit, but I mean that, like I said, that probably wouldn't be the gun I would use, and I'm a grown ass man, so
I'd be giving her a 38 or something like that, not a 357. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think you got to look at whose child she is, though.
But that's Rick's gun, though.
Yeah, she's Rick's kid, and she's Michonne's protege almost. It's almost like any other gun wouldn't do her justice.
Right. And the little katana, she's got her own little katana and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about his journey. Once he escapes, he goes back to his home, and he's all excited, and he's whistling. And before that, he has the encounters with the dogs and gets him a leather jacket. He's like,
I kind of like that moment. That iconic moment is really important because in the comics, Negan's like always sporting some kind of leather. So
right,
yeah, it just happens to go into
really good.
Yeah, it goes into a store and just happens to be a leather jacket his size.
Dude, can we talk about that scene just for 1 second? Because it broke my heart. So I'm not sure if they pulled this out of some other movie. I mean, I've seen it done before, but it still broke my heart. Clearly, somebody who was a survivor had been left all alone. And almost as if foreshadowing for the rest of Negan's journey through the episode, he had arranged a mannequin family to be sitting in that and then it got to be too much, and he clearly just offed himself. That was such a what a commentary. I mean, in such a short maybe 3 or 4 pans of the camera. What an incredible story to tell right there. Like that could
Right.
have its own story by itself. I was blown away by that. I really was.
Right.
You know what? That is awesome that you say that, because and it kind of gives some foreshadowing of the decision that he was going to go on and make, to come back. We'll get to that. But I like that too. That was a nice touch. And I have to say, this season has probably a lot more of those touches than it's been in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah.
So I got to give them that they've done a good job with those kind of things. But it was a great scene. And so we had that moment, and then he goes back to his home, and and then he starts to look around and whatnot.
And he whistles.
Yeah, he does a little whistle. Yeah,
it's like
I can't
home
believe
sweet
I actually.
home. Yeah.
I can't believe I actually felt bad for Negan, but I mean,
he's a
I don't know.
He's a lovable character, regardless. Like he has this charisma about him. Even though he's so evil and he does such evil things, you can't help but like the guy. He's personable.
Yeah, there is something about him for sure.
Tori's dated Negans.
Yes. We're a couple now.
I totally know that guy. but yeah, that's interesting. But and then I love Big Reg.
Jeez.
That was hilarious. Where he's like loyal to the end.
I love how he goes out and kills all the rest of the walkers and leaves him alive because he doesn't want to be alone.
Right.
Like, I mean, that was just so profound.
Then he locks him outside. Follows him back, locks him outside. I was like, okay. And then he's sitting around for a minute, and sitting around for a little while, like, yeah, Reg, this is just not going to work. Thump.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Like, okay.
There's few characters on this show that I can say can hold your attention alone, and he's definitely one of them. Where you can put them by himself, and you'd be compelled enough to really care about what's going on.
Well, I think that was demonstrated in this episode where he was basically alone, except for his short exchanges with Judith. He was basically alone, and he carried every scene so perfectly.
Right.
It's compelling in a way. I mean, not to get like too deep into it, but there are some actors on The Walking Dead who are not quite. I don't know. It's not that they're not ready for prime time. They just don't have the presence,
the charisma.
Gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas. That's a good word.
Yeah, gravitas, charisma. Yeah.
And Jeffrey Dean Morgan does, and so everything that he does on the screen feels important, whether it is or whether it isn't. And that's epic.
One of the things with Negan is from the beginning. I don't know why when his character came out, just how he kind of does stuff and his presence and everything. In my mind is Andrew Dice Clay.
Hey,
that 50s, like, it's like back in the day, like going, yeah, I'll just knock your head. I'm not worried about it. Just that whole kind of like, I've always thought of that as like when he just kind of reminds me of Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a good character. I mean, he's, well, like Jen says, he's a very commanding, even though he's a bad guy, he's a very, commands a lot of presence on the screen.
Well, charisma is very important when you are a leader, whether you are a villainous leader or you are a quote unquote good guy leader. You get charisma. People respond to charisma. Members of the opposite sex do, as well as people of the same sex. They will follow people who have that.
I feel like the whole point of Negan's journey here. I mean, I wrote about this in a review, right? It's kind of like Negan had something that's like a walkabout, right? He had to go out and experience the fact that the world was actually not what it even was when he was out in it 6 years ago. Now everything has changed again, and and the experience that he had out there was transformative. I mean, the title of the episode could have been Transformation. Adaptation might be better, but I mean, there were so many transformative moments. But at the end, I feel like the reason that journey was important was to remind us that the only things now worth protecting are the communities. That there isn't anything in between. That the space in between is dead and barren. And that felt really important. I think it felt important because the communities are not actually working together at this point, not the way that they want to. And my feeling is that is sort of the cohesive glue that needs to get seen in between. Like something needs to remind them that there isn't anything in between, and this was a perfect way for us to see it.
Extremely well said.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So when he comes back, and I love the scene too. He's on the motorcycle, and then she shot at him. You know, I thought that was so cool. So when he comes back, you know, and decides that he'll take his cell back, what was your emotions about it? We'll start off with you, Tori. What did you think about that? Just the idea that he wanted that out so bad, and he'd rather be in a cell than to be out there.
You know, there's this thing that, you know, some people get institutionalized, right? Mm-hmm. So they've been locked up for so long, they don't know how to deal with life without being like in jail, you know, they're or prison, you know, they don't know any other way. And it almost to me seemed a little like that. Like he got a little institutionalized. He got used to being safe and secure, and he didn't have to worry about anything. I'm sure it was so much less stress, you know, like you don't have to worry about surviving. You know, people bring you your food. You just sit around all day and do nothing. Like you don't have to work for it. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot easier to be a prisoner than it is to be a person.
Right.
Yeah, you got three squares and a cot. You know.
Yes.
So you don't have to do anything with it for it. So yeah.
And then when shit breaks out, you're in the prison, so they have to go, you know, fight whatever battle they need to. You know, so.
Right.
Yeah.
And if walkers get in or whatever, anybody comes in, you're inside of a cage. They can't get you.
You know,
you're protected.
My guess is, though, that that's not how Negan's story is going to end. My guess is if Negan came back, that they'll be forced to reckon with the idea that Negan has to be a part of something. I don't know what, work release, something, because it wouldn't make any sense to stick him back in jail. It just, at this point, that wouldn't make any sense. I don't know what kind of reckoning needs to be had in order for that to happen, but something else, I think, is coming along with that. Also, okay, first of all, I just have to make this observation. The zombie apocalypse is not a good place if you're... Because clearly is not being watched very well. How in God's name did she end up on the road when Negan was coming into Alexandria? I would just like to know that. Is that little kid like standing guard all by herself? That was crazy. But didn't anybody else go, wait a minute, what? Is nobody watching you?
No, she pretty much runs her own little kind of like. No, like back when you used to, like when back when I was kids, it was like you left the house, during the day you left the house and you just had to be back home by dark, had to be back home before the street lights come on. So yeah, you go do whatever you wanted to do.
Okay, listen, if the walkers start coming toward us, then everybody's got to come back home. But take your time. Yeah. I don't know. Something seems so crazy about that. But wait a minute. But that wasn't even what I was thinking, right? What I was thinking was this kid was able to shoot a man on a motorcycle coming toward her with zero hesitation. That is some...
You know what that tells me?
What?
You don't want to piss her off.
Right?
No, not at all.
I mean,
dang.
So like, kids' adaptation into different environments. How quickly they learn how to do things.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in Carl's generation, he had to learn things at an older age, and it might have taken him a little longer. But, you know, little babies use iPhones now, and, you know, like they're learning the technology way faster than we ever could. So, like, it kind of showed that kind of cycle too. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect typification of adaptation. Mm-hmm. There is, I mean, first of all, the Whisperers are an adaptation, right? Well, I know we'll get to that, but this idea that there is a need to somehow evolve and move on in this world is really big. And you know, it's funny because I feel like everything that the communities have done up to this point has been to try to rebuild something that existed before, and only through new, fresh, different ideas are they able to do things, conquer things, make things happen. They're not gonna rebuild the world as it was, right? Does that make sense? It's like it really feels like, oh, okay, as this episode was so sticky and so meanderingly strange in its pacing, but it felt so intentional. Like, okay, this is how you figure it out. This is what you do.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because there's I think I get what you're saying. There was the adaptation is the world isn't like it used to be, and you can't go back the way it was. It's going to, you know, things are going to have to change, and you got to work differently to survive
Right.
nowadays. In even the world,
even the water Negan drank. Remember, he drank the water and then he immediately got sick. Like, even that says something about the changing world and why it's not only no longer safe to be by yourself or to try to figure something out on your own, but why just the things that you once thought were okay and good, if you will, are no longer okay and good.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, everything is getting infected, and, you know, because of all the dead bodies and decaying bodies and everything. So groundwater is getting to be, you know, tainted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Whispers.
Okay, go ahead. Let's talk about
them. All right. So, first of all, I know Jen and I think Tori as well. You guys are familiar with the comic book version of them as well, right? So I think we kind of talked about this on the last time we did a show, but let's kind of do it briefly. Without saying too much about what happens in the comic book, does it to you, what we've seen so far, jive with what you saw in the comic book as far as the adaptation? Yeah, we use that word of those characters.
Well, I mean, I can speak to. I was super excited the last in the episode that was the last of the season before the season break, because it did feel like they were heading in the right direction. They were doing a really good job with it. Well, it's too early. I think it's too early to tell specifically. Like, I really want to see Ryan Hurst's character. I really want to get sort of that piece in, because there's a lot to this. And we got a little taste of it with Lydia, where, you know, she started to explain just a teeny little fraction of the Whisperer philosophy. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last podcast or not, but the whole idea of the Whisperers is a lot more cult-like than any other group that we've seen before. And so there's a whole sort of there's a whole philosophy that goes behind what they think and what they do. And that should be really interesting to get behind, because we haven't seen that so much. It's always sort of might makes right, or you know, protection because you need your resources. And this is a little bit different. What do you think, Tori?
Oh, you're on mute. You're mute. You're on mute. Mute.
Unmute.
Here we go. It didn't go. So
there you go.
So I think it's a little different, but that's good, because I would be a little upset if it was just like the comics. Like every other thing in the show. Like, they are different, and that's what's cool about them, and like as scary too. Like, because they're so efficient. You know what they do and how they interact with different groups of survivors. Like, it's efficient and streamlined. I don't think we've ever seen that before, except maybe with Negan. You know, like his clan's been pretty organized, but like Hilltop, you know, it was a community, but it wasn't necessarily streamlined the way that they are. You know, does that make any sense?
Well, because the communities are all about protecting assets and protecting physical space. They're about protecting their environment. And the Whisperers, as a group, are both in the comics and in The Walking Dead, are not about protecting any one space. They are a philosophy all by themselves about the living and the dead. And that's why it has almost a kind of, it's got a strange spiritual bent
kind of like
to
Wicca,
it.
like, you know, a little bit like voodoo, kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, like there's some kind of, it's not, I don't want to say that it's supernatural because it's not, that is not where I'm trying to get to, but there is this sort of philosophy behind them which is definitely very different from anything that we've seen before. Once again, they're not protecting assets. That what they believe needs to happen in this world is something far different, and it's what puts them at odds with all the communities that are hoarding space and resources and assets. That's what puts them at odds with them. Does that make sense?
No,
I
yeah,
think that makes sense.
Because, you know, they're not trying to stay in one spot. They blend in and just walk with the walkers. So that's the, you know, the dead, you know, coexisting with the living. But the dead don't know that they're living because they wear the masks. So, and that's how
they were really scary.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like they were super scary when especially at the end, when you realized that that they were sort of surrounded by them, and you knew that they weren't the dead, that they were actually the Whisperers. It was scary because of course, they look
Right.
like the dead.
And they
and so
they
when
wander. I mean, they meander around and just like they're walk like the dead, and then all of a sudden they stop and pull a knife out and come at you.
I mean, that was actually to me, that was heart-stoppingly crazy. I felt like they did such a good job with the tension in a couple of those
it's like for
scenes.
you know, Daryl's like going, okay, let's just find out who's alive and who's dead. He shoots the first guy in the leg, and nothing, no reaction. Then he shoots another one, and okay. Then he shoots that one, and it's like, oh, yep, okay, you're alive.
And then he gets eaten. That was hilarious.
And then all of them turn around and start, and then you can tell which
hilarious.
ones. You can tell which ones are alive because they're like going, I'm not going that way. They kind of start trying to wander off the other way, like going, yeah, you're not dead.
That's funny.
It's like going, yeah, you're not
but
dead. You know, you're going to be, but you're not dead now.
I think it's great though that's the evolution of this show, right? That people have evolved to the point where they're, you know, doing that, you know, like,
right.
I mean, that's pretty disgusting to put a walker mask on, you know, like the idea of, you know, it's nasty like, putting the guts on them, but to actually take their face and make a mask out of it, and
right,
you know, yeah, man, that's crazy, man.
It takes a human being to do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But I think I'm sorry putting on a walker mask.
Yeah, I can see.
That's what it's going to be for Halloween, guys.
Hey, fun fact for you all. It's like it's like when the walkers were going across the bridge. I actually drove across that bridge a couple of years ago. That's the red oak covered bridge in Sonoya. Yeah. So I've actually
we saw that when we went to Sonoya too.
Yeah, it's like I actually drove across that bridge. Yeah, it's we were out sightseeing, looking at different things, and come across that bridge. And so a couple of years ago, I drove across it. So I've been there.
Yeah. So
He's
I don't
been
know.
to The Walking Dead, guys.
They're hilarious. So all right. So let's talk about. Do you think that how far was Daryl going to go?
Oh, I think that was a good cop, bad cop routine from the start. Yeah. Yeah, I feel pretty positive that it was. But it was actually really, I mean, if they're trying to amp up Daryl's strategic cunning in our mind, that was a really good start. They did a good job. I think it started with the bridge, with him, shooting somebody in the leg that was actually really smart when you think about it. But the part about him sort of interrogating Lydia, threatening to drag her out in front of everybody, honestly, at first I was like, oh my God, that is so out of character for Daryl. Daryl would never do that. And then afterwards, when he was sitting by the window, it sort of all made sense. Like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, I see what they were doing here. And I feel like that was really good.
You got to give her credit though, because she, I would have broke. but it shows how dedicated she is to that philosophy, that she was probably going to be she was willing to get killed to protect it.
Right. And
I am not kidding when I say that this thing feels like a cult. Every time that I go back and reread the parts about the Whisperers, it always to me feels like it's a big, the only thing that you can describe it as is a cult. You would die for your leaders. You would die for the cause. It's that kind of thing.
You would drink the Kool-Aid. You will drink the Kool-Aid.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Drink the
Walker's blood.
I like the way Daryl handled that interrogation, because he didn't let that other guy that was down there know what tore into him also. So that's...
I don't know. Do you think that that's actually the case?
Yeah,
or do you think Daryl had a chance to talk to him?
No, he didn't. It's like, I don't know. It's like the reactions and stuff from the other... It's like from him, where he didn't know that Daryl was playing him. And then you don't really realize that what he was doing, because you're like you said, it's kind of out of character for him to be that blunt and that just, it's like, I'll drag you out and they want to string you up and I'll hand them to you. I'll hand them to you and then let them do what they want to with you, and start talking, real mean and vicious and everything. It's like telling the other guy just to shut up and stay out of it. And then what do you see? They start to kind of talk, and what he's doing, he's sitting outside the window going, uh-huh.
I don't know. I sort of had the feeling that maybe Daryl had talked to Henry after Jesus's funeral, before he went back into the cell. I wouldn't be surprised if we learned that there was some conversation between the two of them. I don't know.
It wouldn't have worked as well. Nope.
You don't think so?
It would not. The good cop, bad cop would not have worked as well, because Henry wouldn't have been able to. He would have cracked. Like, oh, well, hey, let me protect you. No, Daryl didn't talk to him about it. He just tore into him like he was tearing into her.
I think that's how it happened. Yeah.
So if that's the case, then that makes Daryl even smarter than even I.
It's like
they gave him credit for.
Michonne made a comment early on in that she said that you do what you have to do with her. You are the best judge of character that I know. So in other words, she knew that Daryl would do what needed to be done to get the information, and eventually they're going to start. He'll just kind of hang around out there, and eventually Lydia's going to start talking to Henry and tell him a little bit more, because she feels, since she thanked him for kind of trying to get Daryl off her back, so she thinks that she feels he was trying to save her from being, killed. So now they got that jailhouse friendship going thing.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think she's gonna. I don't think obviously she can be trusted, but I don't think that she's going to give him anything solid.
She'll give him a little bit. She'll give him some information and try to get, okay, hey, if you get out, because, he's only supposed to be in there another day or two or something like that, then they're going to let him out. If they can strike up a friendship or something like that, she might go hey, My group is so much better than this, and talk up her group and get him to let her out, and then go join their group, and then they'll bring their group back and try to wipe out everybody.
Yeah, I mean, in the comics, this particular event, if you will, is a pretty long event. So don't underestimate the Whisperers. They definitely have some staying power.
I think you sound like you're part of the cult.
I am.
Like,
I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago.
It was cherry. It was delicious.
She drank.
Thank you, Tori.
They drank.
Spoken by another.
They drank the Kool-Aid and the wine coolers. Yep.
Listen, if the right opportunity comes around and it seems advantageous, the whole point of this episode was called Adaptation, right? And so the people who are the Whisperers, they are probably the masters of adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, they're the most superior that we have seen thus far.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, something pretty big is going on with that group that they are able to, be so. Also, the other thing that I was thinking about this episode while we're talking about the Whisperers is, if you are really, if you listen kind of selectively to the background, you'll notice that the score settles down quite a lot when they are either around or when it's not just for like dramatic pause. There's actually something that's happening on the back of the score here. It's the music changes dramatically when they are around. It's not just that like they have their own riff or that they have their own chords or anything like that. It's something else. There's something is very off key whenever they are around. And it at first it was like it bothered me I didn't understand it. And then I watched it through a second time and I realized that the notes are actually off key. And I feel like that's it's a piece of who they are. They're so off of the norm that even the music and the soundtrack accompanying them is off.
You know what? I gotta give you a lot of credit because I didn't catch that. So I gotta.
You don't get out much, do you?
I did.
I told you I drank the Kool-Aid. What else do you
want? The believer, guys. I mean, come on.
I feel like I gotta rewatch this thing like 18 times after I talk to you. You know what? I mean? I need you to just sit next to me while I'm watching it because like I didn't catch that at all. Like,
listen. I'll be really honest here, and I'll tell you that it's both a curse and a blessing. I've really lost friends that used to come over and hang out and watch shows with me because they say things like this. It's just a show. I'm not that invested in this.
I remember this one time. This has nothing to do with the show, but like this one time, my ex and I were watching Monsters Inc. and like he's one of those people that notice little details too, and he was like, "Well, how does the magic of the doors work? Like, what's the science behind it?" I'm like, "It's a kids' movie. Like, we don't even know the logistics of the door magic." Like,
door magic is simple. It's like when they scream, it makes power, and it powers the door.
I don't know how it works. Like,
it's like then they figured out when you laugh, it's like 100 times more powerful than screams.
Yeah. It's just funny.
Not that I've ever watched it or anything. I wouldn't know.
No, never.
Just a lucky guess.
I wanted to go back to something that we were talking about before with Negan, because it sort of goes all the way through with the communities too, right? Although I guess we didn't see the kingdom this time, but. We're seeing less and less indoor shots.
Did we lose you?
Unless they...
No, I'm still here.
Am I here?
I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Still
we
hear
can-
me?
Yep.
We're seeing less and less indoor shots and more outdoor shots as sort of the world outside becomes more important than the world inside. Whereas even in the last couple of seasons, we spent a lot of time indoors. Just think about that as you're watching this season and think about how much time they actually spend inside of a room. It's small. It's really small. And everything else is all outdoors. Everything else is all in the environment, in the world. I know that this is an actual pivot point that could not have been done by accident.
Yeah, you really need to quit drinking the Kool-Aid.
No, or they think that they're safer. Like, you know, as the infected get older, like as the
Yes.
disease progresses, because it does, these bodies are
Yep.
slower. They're decaying. They can't be as. I'm not gonna put money on it.
We saw that in the truck
Yeah.
with Negan, right? When Negan pulled that thing off of the truck, half of his body.
Yeah,
Right.
so like, you know, they have to like, you know, decomposing bodies have to eventually give out, you know, like, so they're
Yeah.
getting slower and older, and even if they don't die because of old age, they die because they lose their limb, you know, they stop moving, you know, not dead, you know?
Yeah, they lose their muscle. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, I think that's a big point that, you know, and we also don't know what the disease
They feel
progresses
safer
into at the end of it, you know, because every disease has a lifespan. I don't know if you guys know that, but
Well, I think you're totally right. I think it speaks to the fact that people are feeling by and large safer, and so they're spending more time outside. They're not cooped up inside of little tiny, you know, okay, this is my safe space. And that speaks to how successful they've been.
Yep. And I think they're being a little more brazen, you know. They're just like, well,
Yep.
you know, and they're getting comfortable, which can be a downfall because when you're comfortable, you put down your
You let down your guards,
Yeah, you let down your guard, and you don't think of all the little details anymore. So that might get people caught up in the upcoming episodes.
Which is why I thought it was so interesting when they talked about you know, not wanting to get caught on the wrong side of that herd because then they would be out all night. Whereas before, that would have been something to immediately raise the alarm about. You know, everybody would have been like, "Oh my God, there's a horde coming this way. We got to figure out what to do."
It makes you think that they do a lot of thought into really the psychology of where the people are at, you know?
Totally. I think that's what I was trying to bring up, right? Sort of surreptitiously without saying, oh, you know, hey, check out all the psychology. There are pivot points happening in The Walking Dead this season that we have not seen before. And I feel like they're sort of under celebrated. I understand why they should be for the moment, but I see them, and they're bright spots in a story that has been for a long time feeling kind of like the walkers, eroding, atrophying, not sort of getting something new and fresh into it. And they are, rather than just like create a brand new story, it's kind of like they're rejuvenating what has been happening, and they've been putting more and more of this stuff into the story, and it's noticeable. I'm just saying that, like, I notice it.
Well, I have to say that this was a really good episode. I you know, and I probably was branded as Mr. Hater and all of that, but I have to say, no, this is a really good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Why do you think you're a hater? Because you don't agree with everything, or you're a tough critic?
No, I mean, I don't say that I'm a hater.
Oh.
I've been called a hater.
No.
It hurts when people say that.
I know.
He won't drink the Kool-Aid.
No.
Yeah, no, but this was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was for his first first one out of for the next half of the season. It's like, yeah, that was a good one.
It wasn't like other premieres either. It didn't have a lot of flash and bang. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you know, like a lot of action. It was more like. That's also one thing that a lot of people don't like about the show, though. You know, it's whoa, it's like a soap opera, blah blah. But like, you know, I think it goes to know how mature the show is becoming. Anyway.
You sound underwater now.
I'm sorry. Am I still sounding? That was probably the jet.
No,
you probably heard a jet fly over.
No, no, you covered your mic.
Oh, sorry. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're good.
Good.
I can't hold the bottom of the phone at all.
That's Lydia, when they were questioning Lydia, when Daryl was questioning Lydia, she says pretty specifically, walls don't make you safe. And she said something like you have to be dead to be safe. And I mean, there's a part of me that feels like, I don't know, I feel like I'm missing something. I don't quite get exactly what it is, but I'm sure it's there somewhere. I feel like there's a reason that they did something different this episode than they normally do, which is at the end of last episode, they ended in the graveyard, right? And at the beginning of this episode, they started in the graveyard, almost as if no time had passed, right? So it was just kind of a seamless thing where but we still had Michonne's introduction. So there is sort of the passage of time, and yet there isn't the passage of time. And I thought that was like, it was sort of incredibly creative on their part, because we know that time has gone by, and yet to us, it's going to feel like no time has gone by, because here we ended in the graveyard, now we pick it up in the graveyard. Does that make, I don't know, I'm not exactly sure what I'm missing there, but I feel like there's a tangible thread there that I'm just not seeing.
It's almost like a full circle, kind of.
Yeah, like a full circle. Like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of overtones to you ended in the graveyard with somebody's death, and then you start in the graveyard with somebody's death, meaning that, like, death ends one cycle and then death begins another cycle. And so that to me felt very coherent, and I could see that part. But there was something about being in the graveyard to end and to begin that also felt like it was part of that adaptation message. Like, okay, here we are in the graveyard. We can figure out how to adapt even among the dead. Even in death, we can figure out how to adapt. Now, whether that message is for us to understand about the walkers or whether it's for us to understand about the communities, I don't know yet. But it just felt like there was something there.
You had
to
that
acknowledge.
it's like that one little, it's like a snippet of a scene where, they get ready when they're leaving the cemetery. Daryl, locks the gate or pushes the bolt over on the gate, and then they're all standing there kind of shaking at the gate and everything else, and you see one of them reach a hand through and just open it.
That was cool.
I'm like going, oh, he's not dead.
Yeah, I like that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, they have some cute, and then at one point during the episode where those two are going through looking for Negan, and all of a sudden they see the one walker who's walking along and then just stops and freezes, and then
that was
freaky.
They're
like, and then all of a sudden, the camera pans right, and there's 2 or 3 more standing there. Then it pans left, and look, there's another one just standing there staring at him like on.
Yeah, that was what I was talking about before, about how incredibly, that was a really well crafted moment, both from a cinematography standpoint and from a visual narrative standpoint. There was something really amazing about that. Also, the other thing that I think is like so scary about that is that we always understand that the walkers have no real intent, that they're just simply driven by
the need to eat.
The need to feed.
Yeah.
And so for the walkers to suddenly get intent is like, it's really unnerving. I mean, how long have I been watching this show? Like a long time, right? Well, I mean, I shouldn't even say it, but I mean, I've been watching the show from the beginning, and there's just a certain, you have come to expect a certain behavior out of people that look a certain way. And I'm very carefully choosing my words here, because it is definitely one of those serious adaptation pieces where if you expect that everybody who looks a certain way will act a certain way, that can work to your advantage when you don't act that way. and how the communities are going to deal with that is kind of interesting.
Well, like I said, when you're starting to walk through the woods, you see a walker coming at you, then it just freezes and stares at you, and then you start turning around and seeing more of them just standing there staring at you. You're like, crap.
A friend of mine who watched in the last season said, "Oh, don't tell me they're going to have a World War Z Walking Dead crossover."
Oh,
it's like, no, I don't think the zombies are going to suddenly start running. No,
it's like how about the one particular spot in the one scene when they were all frozen there? The one turned out to be a woman because you wasn't really sure. Pulls out that double barrel shotgun and says, "Aha!"
Into the trail.
Like, oh crap.
Our trail ends here. Yeah, that was good. That was actually really good. It was great that they set them up that way. They set them up by the arrows, right? That was actually really good. Again, really super cunning, just showing remarkable amounts of thought into how to do stuff. I really liked it. I thought it was good. Also, we totally forgot to mention the fact that Rosita, the whole Eugene and Rosita thing. I mean, it was almost forgettable, and yet at the same time, oh my God, how sad is that?
She really lowered her standards.
Oh, good Lord. Oh my goodness.
It's funny.
I'm not even sure what I should say about that. I just don't know. I mean, I really like. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So as much as times change, apparently, no, they really don't.
So does that mean now that it's like, I don't know, like I said, it's kind of like the walk of shame the next morning, I guess,
Oh, I just don't, wow. I don't even know. I mean, I love Rosita as a character. I've always loved her, and now I'm just like, girl, what? Really?
I'm not a fan of her character.
I don't like her either. She's very one-sided. Like, I don't know. It's kind of boring.
It's not the actress. It's just the way they write her.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's very, one-dimensional would be a good one.
I like her. I'll stand up for her.
What is there to like about her? Hey, Bobby. What is there to like about her? I mean, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's it.
She is incredibly loyal. She is one of the most loyal characters in the entire series, other than
dog.
Mimi. The dog.
No,
my God.
Dog.
It's like Daryl's critter dog.
Yeah. I mean, come on. No, something to. Okay. Oh, that brings me to the other point that we overlooked. Well, not overlooked, but just didn't get to talk about. So there's a scene when Negan closes the door on the walker and the dogs are chasing him, right?
Yeah, and you hear the dog. Yeah, I know where you're going because.
And clearly the walker was, munching the dog or something like that. Does anybody else think that felt like, I don't know, odd foreshadowing?
Maybe a little.
About
it did
dog?
to me.
Maybe it's future.
Yeah, about something like that, because maybe we're just supposed to know that the walkers definitely still eat animals or something like that. It felt like they spent way too much time on that for us not to feel like there's something important there.
Man, I really need to start watching very much more closer because.
Kinte, you just need to come over to my house. We'll sit down. I'll point everything out to you. I have a notebook by my side.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the Kool-Aid, right?
Look, I have a Walking Dead notebook.
I do
too.
And
so I can even go back to previous seasons and give you some insight.
Wow. On that note, as I said, we're doing the show way early because we had the opportunity to see the episode. So we won't be on Tuesday. But we'll be back on the 19th for episode 2. So I want to start off with you, Tori. How can people get you in social media? And once again, tell everybody about your show real quick.
Okay, so my show is called The Infectious Geek, and it's about all things geeky. We talk about things like cosplay and conspiracy theories and sex robots and, all sorts of techie fun stuff. Tonight's going to be about serial killers, so that's pretty cool. I mean, I have an obsession with them, and I know I'm weird, so I know there's other weirdos out there, so please listen. You can catch me on Instagram at RushTory, Tory, and I always post funny memes. So if you want to laugh, come join my Instagram, and you can follow me on Facebook too, Tory Rush. And that's it. I don't really use Twitter anymore. Oh, and Snapchat, but I don't remember my Snapchat thing.
We're gonna open another room for it. So it's already, we just got to enter it, but to do the serial killer thing. Okay. All right. So Jen, how can we get you on social media?
You can get me on social media at Twitter and on Instagram, both at followingbliss1. And don't forget to come hang out at my site called moviesmakethemeal.com. Super excited for our new season of Cinema du Fromage, where I'll have tons more recipes to post.
All right. And Olaf, how can people get you?
Well, you can stalk me on both Facebook and Twitter at Olaf Barbosa. But as I always say, don't stalk too close because I do get nervous and I do have an itchy trigger finger. There we go.
All right. You can get me at Kinte F on what can you get me at? Kinte F on, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of it. I'm out, wait, here we go.
He's still thinking about my walk.
Wait, here we go. Wait, I'm out of it. But you can get me on Twitter at Kinte F. And you can go to our website. That's indyradio.org. That's indyradio.org. We will be back actually next week at Tuesday because we have an interview on the Spotlight with an actor named Brendan Mitchell. So, we will be back for Spotlight, but not Walking Dead. So with all that said, you guys have a great rest of your week. God bless and stay safe from all the zombies.
Thanks for listening.